have taken up on Verizon's side. And then I find that it was recognized over 80 years ago by the scientific committee that low-level microwave radiation caused a myriad of health problems, but the public evidently didn't get the memo. My husband has Parkinson's disease. The medical community is kind of surprised by why we have this exponential increase of neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS, MS, the whole autism spectrum. Mysteriously, kind of concurrent with all of everybody has microwaves and cell phones and all these wireless gadgets that we all crave. It's like your kids are supposed to turn their phones off, but they stick them under their pillow and sleep with their head on the radiation, you know. I wonder why they're not doing well in school. Mom says, you know, put your phone away, and it just goes under the pillow until parents quit looking.
Kathleen, you need to wrap up.
I see, I'm on the red. Anyway, hopefully it's not too late to educate the public. I don't know. And Verizon, I don't know. Do you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I say no to these cell towers.
Thank you for your comments. I want to remind everybody we're not allowed to consider medical and health considerations, so
sorry.
That's all right. I just a reminder.
People deserve to hear it, even though you can't think about what you hear.
Thank you for your comments, Kathleen.
Hot topic.
Good evening. My name is Melinda McComb. I live in Soquel, and although I shop down here, and as it happens, my regular grocery store is in Begonia Plaza, right there at New Leaf. And so since we're not, although I am myself electromagnetically sensitive, and I don't carry a cell phone around with me all the time, and I try to distance myself from other people who do, since we're not covering health impacts, I would like to talk about the Telecommunications Act. Okay, basically, coverage gaps must be proven by telecom providers, not just estimated or surmised. Members of the public conduct their own studies to provide tests if there's a gap and disprove telecom providers' claims. The gap in coverage must be significant. Seamless coverage or 100% coverage is not guaranteed by federal law. If the gap is not significant, then cities and counties can deny applications because the companies have not made their case. Basically, predictive capacity is not guaranteed under the preemptive clauses of the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Basically, they can't say, we expect our network to grow, so we're going to put this in. Okay, that's not the idea of it, and that's what they mean by significant gaps. The idea of the significant gaps was to provide cell phone coverage for people in remote areas so that they didn't want to have these huge gaps in coverage. And it doesn't provide, and also it doesn't allow or guarantee every telecom provider to have 100% coverage, right? They don't have 100% networks, okay? That was never the idea of it. The other thing I want to talk about is the social injustice of only applying zoning laws to some people. I mean, this city decided that 300 feet, there should be a buffer of 300 feet, and there is no buffer now. You're saying, no, some people don't have to have a buffer. Or they can have a buffer if they can think of a good reason or claim that it's something that they need. But this is inequitable. Basically, you decided that you needed 300 feet as a buffer between homes and cell towers, and now you have someone coming in and basically bullying you, saying that, no, they're going to push it. You actually have it on your books that you don't have to do that, and your police powers are derived from the public health, safety, and welfare. You don't get, why are there zoning laws? Okay, why do they only apply to some people? And I also just like to mention really quickly the loss in property value. If this were going in a high-end neighborhood, it wouldn't happen. You'd stop it. The only reason it's happening here is because you've got a bunch of mobile homes and lower apartments and low-income stuff. If you put this in another area, Capitolia, it wouldn't be allowed. So there is an element of also social injustice or inequality as well, because that's where they go. And the loss in value, okay, real estate appraisers have something called external depreciation that's used in the cost approach. And basically, when houses are near a big shopping center or a freeway or something like that, they take that off. And it isn't just the location, because both the improvements and the land suffer from that. So it's not just in that context. Anyway, I don't think it's fair to claim the right to establish zoning laws and not apply them equitably to everyone, if there's supposed to be a 300-foot buffer, and also this idea
Molly,
that,
you need to wrap up. You're
okay,
over.
that they can just keep building out because it suits their network. That was never the idea, and all of this stuff is going to be just incredibly obsolete because it's all coming from satellites. Okay, all this other stuff isn't needed.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else would like to speak?
Bruce Tanner.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name, sir.
Bruce Tanner.
Thanks, Bruce. What city do you live in, Bruce?
Excuse me, I live in Santa Cruz,
Thank you.
and I shop on 41st Avenue, right in the area where that mast is all the time.
Thank you.
As I understand it, the justification for the existence of government is that it is here to protect the people that government officials represent ostensibly. I don't think that the government officials represent massive corporations. I don't think that's the point of it. You're saying that we can't talk about the health effects of microwave radiation or EMF radiation because of the Federal Telecommunications Act. But I would ask you, where does this federal administration get the authority to tell a local jurisdiction that it cannot protect the well-being of its population? As the last speaker pointed out, you already have an ordinance on your books, which, in my opinion, does not adequately protect the health of your residents, but it does say there has to be a 300-foot setback. And in this case, you have adequate justification for denying this permit. But I would just like to talk about the Federal Telecommunications Act and what it permits. The Federal Telecommunications Act permits 10 billion nanowatts per meter squared of microwave radiation in a 30-minute exposure. That's in a 30-minute exposure. At 1/200th of that level, there is DNA damage in cells, and that level is exceeded by body contact with an iPad or a Wi-Fi enabled laptop. At 1/200th of that level, there's induced stress response. At 1/400th of that level, there's impaired nervous system activity. There is slowed memory, altered immune function in children. These are all from scientific studies. At 1/1000th of that level, there's double-strand DNA damage. There's 2 times the rate of leukemia in adults. At less than that, there's affected functions of the immune system. At 1/3000th of that level, there's pathological leakage of the blood-brain barrier, which is accounting for all of the kinds of brain health issues that we're seeing. Dementia, brain tumors, and many other pathologies. At 1/5000th of that level, there's decreased survival in children with leukemia and 2 times the rate of leukemia in children. At 1/10,000th of that level, that is the level of being exposed at 10 feet from a Wi-Fi router, or 1,000 yards or 300 feet from a cell tower. There is decreased cognitive function, slowing of the heart, change in EEG function. At
Bruce, you're going to need to wrap up now.
At 1/20,000th of that level, there are headaches, memory changes, depressive systems, and sleeping problems. Behavioral disruption, significant increase in breast cancer and brain tumors. And this damage goes down to 1/3 millionth of that level. There is behavioral problems in children. This is what you, as public officials, need to protect the people you represent from. And you need
Thank you for your comments, Bruce.
You need to have the strength to go up against this illegitimate administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Hello, Lowell Webb, SoCal. I'm a merchant and farmer. The 300-foot limit is quite significant in my business. As a farmer, the buffer is very important and usually respected for a certain distance away from a farming operation for various things that go on. It's an interesting thing. We hear a lot about the golden rule, but I think most of us have also heard two versions of the golden rule. One is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The other one is he who has the gold rules. And that appears to me that is what's going on with this lawsuit from Verizon. The guy that's got the gold is going to rule because he threatens you people so badly that it makes it very difficult for you. I congratulate you for standing up to them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
My name is Drew Lewis. I haven't got any prepared speech or anything, but I just wanted
What city do
to.
you live in?
I live in Santa Cruz. I shop a lot at the Begonia Center, and so I'm really concerned about the radiation exposure there. My brother got a brain tumor from his cell phone, and his doctor who works on him is adamant that it was caused by his cell phone. He has a lot of clients, a lot of patients with brain tumors on the same side of the head that use a cell phone. One thing I just wanted to point out that this Telecom Act was basically written by the telecom industries, and they made a special provision in the Telecom Act that no environmental concerns would be used to regulate any placement of towers and stuff, because they knew that these towers that put out this radiation cause health problems, and anybody can go on the online and they can look up cancer clusters around cell towers, and it's been well established that within a 300-yard radius of these cell towers there are cancer clusters. So if you look at the evidence in the scientific data, you can see why the telecom industries wrote into the Telecom Act to exclude any concerns about health effects, because they knew that there were serious health effects, and that's why they wrote the law to prohibit us from using the scientific documented evidence that this is a serious health problem. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Drew.
Hello, my name is Tammy Downley. I live in Aptos. I live right behind Cabrillo College. I've been there for 33 years now, and I just wanted to share that I had perfect health, never had a sleeping problem, never had headaches, never had heart palpitation. I live directly behind Cabrillo where the horticultural center is, and when they installed all those towers like 10 years ago, I didn't sleep hardly at all for 3 years. I had ringing in my ears, headaches, fatigue, heart palpitations all the time, and I had excellent health before that happened. And as a result, I actually moved out of the house for a while, and then I had to investigate how to make the house safe so I could move back in. And the reason I wanted to share this is because I live a third of a mile behind Cabrillo College. So when you guys are talking about the setbacks of 300 yards, I mean, I could feel all this and was affected by it so much from being a third of a mile away. So this is very serious, and I just want to ditto what Drew said, because the reason they wrote this law is because they knew there's studies published all around the world. It's just that the telecommunications is so powerful here. Every time somebody tries to show these studies, they don't get published. And there's been numerous times when they've tried to put it in papers and on, news and different things like that. It's been shown many other places around the world, but it's a very, very serious problem. There's huge cancer clusters wherever they go, and the list of health complaints is huge. And plus, there's great coverage. I got rid of my cell phone 10 years ago. I got rid of the Wi-Fi 10 years ago. I got rid of the smart meter. And we don't have any of that on the property, but when I go out, I love going to Begonia. That's where I love to shop there, at Way of Life and New Leaf, and I go there all the time. So it's going to affect everybody that's working there, 5 days a week. So I'm going to hold a happy thought that you don't pass it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Pam.
Marilyn Garrett, you have every right to uphold your ordinance here. What we have here, as you spoke so well and did on March 10th, the reason we're here today is because of a corporate power stranglehold over democracy, in this case by Verizon. What kind of government do we have when decisions are made by corporate rule and corporate lawsuits? There is no democracy if we have that. You've heard some of the evidence of the harm known from these exposures, including the recent report by the U.S. National Toxicology Program that was cited. And these are just the facts. And no one was elected, and I don't think you went into office with the idea of harming your constituents. Recently, there was a Verizon strike, and I was reading labor notes. Verizon strike shows corporate giants can be beat, and I think we need to stand up to the corporate giants. Verizon makes about $1.8 billion a month profit, and they can't even pay their workers decent wages. You live in a beautiful area here in Capitol, and I also shop frequently at New Leaf, though I live in Aptos. You have the seashore and the birds and just a magnificent setting displayed here in the artwork. A publication is called Bees, Birds, and Mankind, Destroying Nature by Electrosmog, and talks about functional impairment in navigating creatures and in us caused by the superimposition of these artificial and military frequencies over our natural functioning. I want to quote Barry Trower, whose expertise is microwave radiation weaponry. And he states, to my knowledge, microwave sickness was first reported in August 1932 with the symptoms of extreme fatigue, headaches, intolerability, high susceptibility to infection. The paradox, of course, is how microwave radiation can be used as a weapon to cause impairment, illness, and death, and at the same time be used as a telecommunications instrument. He worked in the British Secret Service in the 60s and 70s. That was his specialty.
Marilyn, you need to wrap up.
Okay. You have every right to refuse this. I'm going to leave you with copies. Also, the staff report states how the FCC requirements for emission levels have to be met. And there's a report here of how there are violations of these emission levels all over. And a picture here of scorched trees in South Africa from the Verizon 4G. Are we going to let corporate rule destroy democracy and our health and our environment? I'm not for that.
Hello, my name is Dondi Gaskill. I live in Aptos, but like a lot of people here tonight, I shop at New Leaf. If this tower goes in, I don't know if I'll be able to do that. I have a cell phone, but I use it when I need to call out. Otherwise, it's off and it's in a protector that's silver line, so I don't get an EMFs. And I don't put it up to my head. I hold it out and talk on a speakerphone. I was an engineer for 13 years in Silicon Valley. I worked there, I lived here. It's a beautiful area, and I don't want it to become another Silicon Valley. I don't know what the big rush is. I think somebody in local government thinks they're going to make a lot of money off from it. I think it's going to backfire eventually. These companies who are trying to bully us like to say that they're making the towers look good. They're disguising them. Those of us that are EMF sensitive, they're not doing us any favors. We can still feel them. They're still doing the damage. They're only fooling themselves. And it's a sad day in America where corporations can bully the government, the local governments. It just shouldn't be happening. And this is just like the cigarette companies all over again. They've known for years what this does to the health of people. And it's so foolish that they were able to, the lobbyists were able to pass a law that says we can't talk about our health when they don't know darn well that's exactly what they're destroying. Please help us. Please try to figure out a way to fight against them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this matter? Seeing that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. No. No.
Last time you let us speak a little longer. The other person who brought the appeal had a client, and I hope she gets here, Marketa Vilkova. But may I please just submit this? A picture of dead birds by a communication tower, almost 1,000. And I want to talk about the firemen. In 2004...
Pardon me, Mayor.
Can I?
I don't want to, I apologize for interrupting, but I'm concerned that the speaker, if you're going to open up public comment for one speaker, I'm concerned that you're going to create an expectation.
Yeah, I thought, Marilyn, you were just going to drop off some flyers.
I'll drop these off, but also this is a reconsideration hearing of the PO de
Right,
novo.
but I want to be consistent with the attorney. Like I said, when you came back up, I thought you wanted to bring us some more papers.
But last time...
And the other point is that, well, Ms. Garrett made the point for me. This is a reconsideration of a public hearing that you've already had and heard many of this very same testimony. So I'm concerned that the meeting is going to get out of hand.
No, I'm fine with that. Marilyn, my mistake, I thought when you were coming back up, you said you wanted to drop off some paperwork.
So I'll give you these about the firemen being sickened by the antennas.
That is fine, but I
little
can't let you speak again.
But it said de novo on the paper I got. Right? What does that mean?
There's been no rebuttal. If someone were to counter back, you would be allowed to rebut, and I'm going to open it up to someone else, and you would be allowed to rebut in a de novo situation. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Come on up, sir.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, lady and gentlemen of the City Council. I'm Pete Chubin with Sequoia Deployment Services here tonight representing Verizon Wireless. Staff did a good job of putting all the backup documents and exhibits into the staff report. I'm sure you've seen them. If there's anything in particular you'd like to have me address or ask me some questions on, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Hello. I'm just confused by the screening method, the architectural screening method. There are some plans I've seen that make it look like brick. There are some that make it look like a vent pipe. What's the final application for?
We have received some questions regarding the detail that makes it look like a brick. That's a detail that gives some information on how it's accessed inside the chimney. The plan for it is as presented in the photo simulations. It is a stucco finished chimney that matches one of the main colors of the building. When we received the condition from the Planning Commission, we talked with staff. Rather than bringing in some new material, we looked at the materials on the building and said, what would be your preference to match? And it matches if you look at the band where the sign is, the colors there, that color that on the building.
Mike, you done? Yes. Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you for coming. Would you apprise us of how the study was done in terms of determining the coverage, signal strength, what kind of equipment, what was the procedure?
The signal strength and coverage, it was due to the experience of the network. If staff will bring up exhibits.
So was this a passive study or were pieces of equipment?
Page 74 of the staff report, Exhibit A86 of the agenda packet, excuse me. Sir, to answer your question, that page has a graph on it that shows data usage on the network that this is designed to cover and solve. And what it shows that as of August, or roughly about August 2014, that the sector of a nearby site that provides service to this area was exhausted, meaning it was at capacity, data was being delayed, signal was being blocked. So there was more usage than there is capacity of the network to support it. What that means is it was data taken from the network time over several years, and then in the future it's graphed on a projection of usage trends that Verizon Wireless sees, that all carriers really see as a result of increased usage in not just data, but increased usage in voice calls and how voice is being sent over as data.
So I'm not a telecommunications expert, but is this a limitation of the equipment at the base station rather than the number of stations?
It's a combination of equipment limitations, frequency, bandwidth limitations, position relative from the antenna to the user, the people who are actually using the network. So it's all those things with finite resources of bandwidth that technology over time has increased the efficiency of the usage of bandwidth. It still reaches exhaustion.
Okay, so is the equipment at the base station current, up to date, or are we relying on older equipment that has those limitations?
This is current, what is currently described as 4G equipment, LTE. So it is the equipment, the best equipment that is available for deployment today.
As I said, I don't understand these systems, but that's the extent of my questions.
Any other question? Okay. I have no questions, so
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Question for the city attorney, just for my clarification.
Yes.
This is actually, under the appeal, we have a de novo quality, which we have to adhere to, but since this is a reconsideration, does that still apply, or the appellant actually can have another comment?
The reconsideration is a very unusual procedural mechanism, but you're right. The appeal itself is a de novo hearing.
Which means that the appellant would be allowed to make one final comment.
That's right.
And I will allow that. Marilyn, since the representative from Verizon did respond to this and opened up a chance for a de novo response, you will be allowed to make one more 3-minute comment.
Okay, and to the other person who did the appeal with me just arrived. She had to work, and as did Dr. Sylvia Skeffich. So
is there a name on the appeal?
Ronquetta Bilkova, yes.
It's one appeal.
Her name's on the appeal.
It's just one appeal. One appeal? Marilyn's name is the only one's on it?
No.
There's multiple names on the appeal, but it was a
Two.
single appeal.
There's one appeal. Marilyn,
It's in front of
Marilyn,
you.
here's what we're going to do.
It's in front of you.
Marilyn, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let you have 3 minutes for any one person you have.
I have Marquetta come up.
One person.
Well, can
no,
they
Marilyn.
split it? Marquetta, come on up. Give them a minute and a half. This is the public.
Do you want a minute and a half each? Okay. You weren't here when I made my announcement, but please state your name and what city you live in, and remember that we can't consider any health impacts. But
My name is Sylvia Skefich. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I work within a mile of the proposed tower. I'm concerned, I live in the city of Santa Cruz. I work in the city of Santa Cruz, but I'm very nearby many hours of the day, full-time. So I understand that you, as a city, don't want to put yourself in the position of being sued. So I've decided, and I'm just stating this for public record, to take the matter to my legislator and see about making more stringent laws that can mitigate the aggressive behavior of a company like Verizon. Supreme Court Justice Alito has actually made a statement about that corporations don't have the right to do the bottom line to the exception of the environment. There is a child care facility within 450 feet of this proposed tower at the Spa Fitness Center. I'm concerned about these people, these little infants, 6 months to 13 months old. And so basically, I will be meeting with SAMFAR to discuss reining in the extent to which companies like Verizon can just do their own bidding. So that's my statement.
thank you for your comments, Sylvia. Appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Marketa Bokova. I'm an acupuncturist and I live in Santa Cruz. And I have Marilyn and I were the original signers on the appeal. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about the issue of significant gap of coverage. Okay, I wanted to talk about the issue of significant gap in coverage. At this time, there is no significant gap in coverage in the area of the proposed tower as far as phone calls are concerned and as far as sending and receiving text messages. All that works fine, right? Verizon proposes that if the data use continues to go up, then eventually there will be problems with sending data files and whatnot, and there is legal precedent that shows that this is not actually considered a significant gap in coverage, and I can provide you with reference. There's cases that were won based on this. This is not what the Telecommunications Act meant. That we have to continue to meet this increasing demand for sending more and more and more data files that people are sending from their phones, right? Gap in coverage is I can't make a phone call, I can't send a text, right? But the fact that I can't stream videos, that is not what the Telecommunications Act meant as a gap in coverage, and this is a disputable question for, I guess, the legislators to consider, and there are legal cases where this was shown to be not valid. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, with that, we'll now go ahead and close the public hearing on this, bring it back for discussion.
I'll start off since I instigated this particular effort. While I haven't changed my opinion, what we were faced with is the question that I posed last month, which is I've never really tested what would happen if we actually turned one of these down, and I'd blindly passed maybe 18 of them in the course of my years with Capitola. Well, we found out. We were sued in federal court. I wish that we had the kind of horsepower, the kind of energy, the kind of money that it would take to engage in this kind of battle, because this is just the kind of battle that I'd love to engage in. We, I'm afraid, as a body, cannot risk the overall financial help of the community, and that's what we'd be doing. We have been advised that the amount of legal fee drain on a case that was at best tenuous would be detrimental. And while I hate to put something in the terms of dollars and cents, we had a similar situation not too long ago where two of us who are up here right now had to sit here and effectively displace people from their homes because we could not fight the legal battle that should have been fought. So, we find ourselves in a position where we wish we were San Jose or Los Angeles or San Francisco and had a war chest and had a room full of lawyers that sat around waiting to do our bidding. We don't. We pay by the hour like any normal citizen would, even though we're a government organization. A city of 10,000 just cannot take on this kind of battle. It breaks my heart, but it's the hard truth, and we have to do that balance, as difficult as it is. I wish we could be as single-minded and as passionate and as committed as all the people we've heard speak tonight. And I'm afraid that's not our job. So I would motion that we overturn our former decision and accept the decision of the Planning Commission to allow this particular cell site to go forward.
With the new findings.
Did I get new findings?
Yeah, new findings.
I keep getting new findings and I'm not seeing them. Do I have new findings? If you're holding them in your hand, would you pass them to me? I thought I was reading the findings that I found. The application, subject to the conditions imposed, will secure the purposes of the zoning ordinance and general plan. The application will maintain the character and integrity of the neighborhood, and the project is categorically exempt under Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act and is not subject to Section 753.5 of the California Code of Regulations.
Pardon me. There's one more. Condition number 1 in your staff report contains a typographical error that I'd like to.
And that's under errata?
Oh, it's fixed in errata. Okay. Never mind. Thank you.
Thank you. That is my motion. Thank you.
Is that a second?
Second, and under discussion.
Yes.
There's no doubt here that we hear you and we are sympathetic. We showed that with our vote last time. But we're faced with reality, which is that the federal government has taken this over. So I would like all of you that are concerned about this to write stacks of letters to Congress, to Sam Farr and Jimmy Panetta, and get all your friends in other states and other jurisdictions to write to their Congress members, because that's the only way this is going to change. This is going to be the process from now on. The other thing that you need is more scientific evidence. And so we need to get the scientists on this. And it's been a topic for a long time, and I don't know, how much people are really working on this. But, as a nurse, I want to see people working on this. I want to see studies. I want to have some answers about this. And there's just not the scientific evidence that we can hang our hat on. This was at a League of California Cities.
You're not allowed to speak at this time. Thank
you. The hearing's over, sorry. At a League of California Cities, at a League of California Cities conference, probably 10 years ago that I attended, people asked our staff person, should we be doing infill developments in the Central Valley around, some of these towers and the electric fields and wires and, things that they have a lot more of than we have. And staff came back the next month and they said, there's just not the scientific evidence, but I'd be cautious if I were you. What's wrong with being cautious? So, that's the other thing that we absolutely need. And we may find out in 10 years or 15 years that, this is like smoking. But we are where we are today, and we can't really...
Excuse me a second. This is a public hearing, and this is a process. The process is not a discussion. We sat here and listened to every one of you speak, and we were quiet. And we expect the same from you. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
So we would, I think, we would like to say no to these, but, who's going to pay our lawyer bills? And then we're going to lose because our ordinance does not have everything we need in it that would overturn this. I mean, I don't think there are any ordinances that are really can do that. But our ordinance can't, and that's all we have today is what's written on paper. And I don't want to go to court with that ordinance and without and have any kind of huge legal expense for a little tiny city. So that that's just where we are. The issue of turning into Silicon Valley. I don't know, what is behind that other than jobs, jobs, jobs. This county needs good paying jobs. People grow up here and there aren't good paying jobs to buy a house or a condo or an apartment, a townhouse, and so they drive over the hill. So I think that's one of the thoughts is that there are people in the county that are working on economic development for jobs because that's been the history of this county, tourism and agriculture. Tourism and agriculture, agriculture and tourism. Those are the main jobs here besides the university and a few other employers. The cities and the County Office of Education is a bigger employer and, a few public agencies. But there are not good jobs here. And so I support that. We want people to be able to stay in and work in the community. So that's what that's all about, I think. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to, vote for this. And until our hands are untied by Congress, that's where we stand, and it's kind of a waste of everybody's time in a way to keep going over the same issues every time. And I appreciate all your passion, but it doesn't get us anywhere. We know the issues, we understand it, we're sympathetic, we'd like to do something, we can't. So I'm sorry.
Chuck, go ahead.
2 points. This body is limited in what it can do. We're here to run a city, and if there's overlying regulations that influence our situation, we have to abide by those regulations. We basically have to abide within the law as far as it's covering here in Capitola. The second point is, since I've been on this body, I've actually tried to read as much as I can, things that Marilyn's provided. She's even given me a video. So I've tried to educate myself, and nothing to me has shown a clear connection. There's suggestive stuff for, lab rats and things like that, including the last study, which was ambiguous as far as sexual differentiation in terms of the effect. So I'm really not convinced. The science is not there. I think the main thing we could do is pressure Congress to make sure that the results and further studies are done to make sure that there isn't anything there or to find out if there is something there. And then that begs the question. This whole society right now has progressed way beyond twisted copper wires to everyone's home. It totally depends on wireless communication for almost every single segment of what goes on in our civilized world here. Data communications on all sorts of levels. So I don't know where it leaves us.
Thank you. I think you are all very keenly aware of the laws that affect this case, and you understand our position here. Not only are we guided by those laws, but we also have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Capitola not to put this town at risk financially. The situation you bring may be very valid, but I attended a Commonwealth conference one time in San Francisco with Judge Anton Scalia, and the one thing he said is, if you don't like the laws, change the laws. So I applaud the second to last speaker that said she's going to take this to the legislature, because that's where you need to go. That's where your energy needs to be directed, because that will empower us to enforce laws that may benefit your case. So I encourage you to proceed in that direction. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote on this matter. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So that will take us to our next item, which will be D, which is a consider a resolution for a levy of Capitola Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area, otherwise known as the BIA.
I think they already know about this study, but there was the one on the. This is the precedent.
Okay.
Where they have that. That's just a study on cancer, but that's the precedent that I was referencing in my thing. I'll scan it and email it to them. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, members of council, the item before you is the resolution of intention to levy the Capitol Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area assessment for fiscal year 2016-17. The Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area has submitted their annual plan as required by city code, as well as their proposed budget, and today would be adopting the assessment for next year. And Karin from the BIA is here to expand on that.
Good evening, Karin Hanna.
Welcome, Karin.
Thank you. I think most of you are pretty familiar with what the BIA does. I just would like to read our mission statement just as a refresher, because it has been, I think this might be our 11th year, 10th or 11th, I don't know, I can't keep track. The objective of the BIA is to provide a unified organization to promote, stimulate, and improve business in the designated area, primarily during the shoulder season, which is September through May. The belief is that if the lodging properties and short-term rentals are full, the rest of the businesses in the area will benefit. So that's our mission, and as you know, see from our budget, most of our money goes to advertising. This last year, we completely revamped our website. And if you haven't gone to capitolavillage.com recently, please do, because I think it's a really fabulous, up-to-date website. And I think you'd really enjoy taking a look at it. There's one thing we all know, Capitola visually, you can't beat it. And so when you can put that before visitors, they want to come and visit. And as I said, we really concentrate most of our efforts on out-of-county, off-season, because we all know that we're very heavily impacted during the summer. So that is not, our big push is not to get people to come here to the beach for the day in the summer. So I just want to just kind of touch on that. And if you have not signed up for our new, or aren't getting our newsletter, go to capitolavillage.com and sign up for the newsletter, because it's a great way to keep up with who's new, what's going on with some of the businesses, and also a reminder of the events that are going on. That goes out to about over 7,000 people every month, and we're really proud of the job that it does. And I think that's it. I'm here if you have any questions about what we're hoping to do next year or something we did last year.
How's business so far this year? It looks busy. It looks good.
It's mixed. Honestly, it is a bit mixed, because yes, it's been very, very busy. There have been lots of people there, and I thought I was going to. Last year the restaurants had quite a good season, and I kind of assumed that it was carrying on that way, but what I'm hearing is it's not as strong as last year, and certainly in the retail business nationally and small business, it's definitely not what it was. And I think there are a lot of factors, a lot of uncertainty. Presidential years are always difficult for small business, and, I just think things are still tight. So, we're happy. I don't think anybody's in the village to get rich. It's a quality of life thing. We enjoy being there. We enjoy being with our visitors, or, they're on vacation. How much better can that get than the people that you talk to are having a good time, and they're having family reunions, and, just getting together with friends, coming down for lunch, and then shopping. So, we're not really, the good thing is, we're not really getting much negative feedback about the parking. So things seem to be kind of at a nice level there. People, they're not complaining as much about the parking banks. Every once in a while we get a little, I don't know how this thing works, but, for the most part, we're not getting the kind of negative responses that we used to get about the parking. So either every place else in the world has gotten worse, so we don't look so bad, or they're getting used to it, or whatever. But, that's a really positive thing. We're getting, we just don't get a lot of negative feedback. People love Capitola.
I love the new bakery. It's very nice.
Boucher's.
Very nice. Yeah, very
Yeah,
nice. They
very
might want to
classy.
stay open a little longer. They close early in the afternoon. Maybe they don't have any business after that. But in the afternoon, there's a lot of people leaving the village that, might want to stop in and get some coffee or something on their way home.
Yeah, and there's always that little dead time, and then it kind of picks up again
Yeah.
around dinner, but it makes it really hard to staff
Yeah.
some place.
Food is
but-
really good.
And they're really, they just, this weekend, they sort of made a few little improvements, and they're working on their signage, and so I think they're growing, and I think they'll test it out and see. And what most of us do is, we just keep pushing the limit. Like for us, a couple weeks ago, we started staying over a half an hour later. Now, another week, we're staying over another half hour later. We just keep pushing it, because you can pretty much tell when it's pointless.
Do people come in on Wednesday nights to the concerts? Does that give you any
No.
business?
None. As a matter of fact,
The restaurants see most of that.
definitely the restaurants, but for the retail businesses, because the parking is all taken up by people who are trying to get there and get their space. They don't want to give up their space, and then by the time it's over, they're cold, they're tired, they just want to go home. We could almost close early. We used to try and stay open till after the concert was over, and it was pointless. So, it pretty much on Wednesdays, it's pretty much done by about 5:30.
Are you going to do any First Fridays?
No.
John, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just funny. So, weather-wise, do you think the season is a little broader now?
Well, this year we had snow in the mountains. I think that affected us in the winter, as far as people who, last year, everybody came all year because the lakes were down, the rivers were down, and there was no snow. This year, we're competing against, water in the lakes, the rivers, and snow. But, I think weather-wise, you've seen the beach. It's packed, I think.
What do you think of the new intersection near the bridge?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, it seems to be working. Seems to be really functioning well.
Looks good, too.
It looks great. I saw some people taking pictures of the plants the other day. I thought, okay. And did everybody see the mural on the new Capitola Beach Suites?
Right. It's beautiful.
Awesome. That guy is beyond talented. He's amazing. The detail on that is amazing.
Are they open?
Yeah.
It's all finished.
I think they still have maybe a couple rooms that are not finished, but
They're open.
They're open, the elevator, the deck, everything. I think they're going to do something.
They should. Chamber of Commerce ought to have a mixer there.
Yeah,
or an
something.
open house, or
Yeah, I
kinda
think
hard
they're
to have
gonna
it in
do
a hotel,
something.
but It'd be nice. Everybody wants to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Have a deck.
Mike, any questions? Okay, thank you for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public like to speak on the BIA resolution? Seeing none, we'll bring it back.
I'll move the resolution, and with a note that, for the criticism that we sometimes bring to the BIA and that they bring to us, if you've been in this town long enough, you will realize that the BIA is the first time that effectively the merchants have gotten together and done things. In spite of any criticism we may give or someone else may give, it's doing something. And I'm not the person to judge the good or the bad of it, people are in business. It's their determination. So, all in favor of the organization, and again, move to adopt the resolution.
Second, and just congratulations again. I mean, what a feat this is. I mean, it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful that you did this. So thank you very much. Great organization.
Before I call for the vote, I just want to thank you for all your help with the cardboard initiative. Okay, it seems to be working almost flawlessly. Almost, yeah. So with that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
How cardboard gets moved around in the early morning hours is...
Okay. It takes us to item E, which is a public hearing to consider the proposed fee schedule for fiscal 2016. City Manager, Finance Director.
Mayor, members of council, as part of the budget process, we'd like to update our fiscal year 2016-17 fee schedule. We said when we adopted the comprehensive fee study and new fee schedule back in November that we would get on the fiscal year schedule. So with that, the adjustments we're proposing is an inflationary adjustment across all the fees at 2.6%. That's the same adjustment that employees are seeing in their pay. Therefore, our costs are increasing by a little bit over 2.6, but 2.6 to keep up with that. We're recommending a few minor changes in planning, police, and public works, just things we kind of missed in the study. We did a comprehensive study. In the police department, we're recommending reducing duplication of reports down to what we charge in the city clerk's office, just to be fair to everyone. We're proposing 2 new fees and also 1 increased fee. The fees that we're recommending for approval is the addition of an administrative decision appeal fee. Right now, the only appeal fee we have is on a planning decision, and it's at $142. During our fee study, we showed full cost recovery of just under $3,100. To be not cost prohibitive to people, in order to appeal a decision, we're recommending a $350 fee there. We're recommending a new residential single-family staff review fee of $750. That's just to reflect that some of our residential single-family that comes in don't require as much time and effort, so we're recommending a little bit lower fee. And we're also recommending increasing the surf school permit from the current $50 to $500. Just to expand on that, right now Santa Cruz is at $1,500, and doing some analysis this morning, our full cost recovery on just issuing the permit to the 5 schools is just over $1,500, and that $1,500 does not include any enforcement of our permit process. So our recommendation is that we approve the fee schedule as presented, which has the 2.6 inflationary adjustment, add the 2 fees, and also increase the surf school permit.
Thanks. Question.
Would you explain the difference between an administrative decision appeal fee and a planning commission decision fee?
Sure, I'll try on that. So planning decision appeal is the actual planning commission had the item, made a recommendation, and they're appealing that to the board of the city council for final decision.
Is that remaining at its present rate?
That is remaining at the $142. And then this would be if staff made a decision on an item over the counter that if they appealed that to the city council, we would charge $350.
And Mr. City Manager, if we were to have both those fees be $1,000 each, is that within our ability since it's well below our recovery rate?
It is. Since both of those would be below your recovery rate, it certainly is significantly below. It just comes down to a matter of policies where, for example, we have fence permit fees, and I think we determined that a fence permit should be something on the order of $250. Right. Didn't seem reasonable, so we set it at a far lower level. Yeah. So this is purely policy about what the right level is to set each one of these fees.
Thank you.
Jack, question?
Yeah, 2 questions, one for you and one for Tom. What's the fee if a neighborhood wants to do a little neighborhood barbecue close off part of the street? I couldn't find it. Block party, yeah.
Street closure.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, sorry. But we do have one. Is it fairly reasonable so you don't have to, it doesn't cost anything?
I don't
Well,
think
there's
so.
an entertainment fee.
The block permit?
Yeah, I couldn't find anything, so.
Bob's got it covered.
Oh,
The block party permit, we actually do a grant for that.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of influenced by current events, so I want to ask you a little bit about gun permits and how we go about doing that. I noticed there's a fee for concealed weapons. I was looking for an individual permit. I didn't find that. If you could explain the different fees and conditions and procedures you have for guns and allowing proper use or permits for guns.
For concealed weapons permit, it has
It's
to.
only concealed weapons, is that it?
Concealed weapons, it has to go through the chief of police. And
Okay.
he'll issue that. We have none that I know of right now.
Okay, so the only thing our city does is for concealed weapons?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the procedure there, so?
They have to apply and give their reasoning. The chief reviews that, does an interview, and then makes a final decision.
Okay, and how about background check or anything of that sort?
I believe so, but we have none at this point, so.
They start with the state background checks to own a firearm. And if they pass all of those and are able to own it, then they apply for a concealed weapons permit.
Okay, I
The
got it.
chief has the arbitrary ability to either grant or withhold.
So the procedure is state authorizes the holding of a,
Well, in order to get a weapon, you have to
You have
pass
to have
that.
that? Okay. Mm-hmm.
And there's a 10-day waiting period before you can pick up your firearm.
okay, and then the chief basically is doing an interview and deciding if that is reasonable within
He
the
makes the
city.
final determination whether he's going to issue a concealed weapons permit or not.
Does that qualify for concealed out of the city of Capitola, or is it just in the city of Capitola?
It's in the state of California, I believe.
In the state of California. So someone can come here and get a concealed weapon permit for anywhere in California?
Yes, they're usually a resident or a business person that's in Capitola, and will issue the concealed weapons permit, but it's valid in the state.
Thank you.
Well, I knew the surf school was going to be kind of tricky. Like this question, oh, wait, I have a question for staff.
Any more questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for staff?
Yeah, I mean, does that, I knew they were going to have apoplexy when they went up to $500. And I was going to say something at the time, but I thought, well, I'll wait and see what reaction they have. But does that cover, is that way over our recovery expenses? Does that cover our costs? Is that, can we really justify that number? I know we spent a lot of time on surf schools this year, so I could say probably this year it would cover it. But next year, if everything is just kind of routine, that seems
You had the number up there.
Yeah.
The number would it cost. Didn't you have the number?
So just to recap, yeah, so we looked at a typical year on how much staff time is involved to issue the permit, and we came up with a figure of just over $7,500.
Yeah, but there isn't a typical year because we've had problems with these schools for the last couple of years.
We tried to go to a typical year and take out this year. This year's cost would have been a lot higher. But in a typical year, we project for the 5 permits at $1,510 is our total cost.
Really? Just to fill out sign a permit and give it to them?
There's an application process they have to do too.
Staff, everything.
Police chief was involved.
You're the only deal in this town.
Okay, thank you.
Can't do one now. It's too high for you.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public like to speak on this issue? Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Name's Jason Alanis, run Capital Surf Paddle, seen you before for the surf school permit. Not really an issue with the increase of the fee. Just kind of curious how that kind of came about, a little bit of explanation right there. And then, so if it's a cost of, ongoing cost of $1,500, we have a little bit of a surplus of $1,000, it kind of seems like. I can suggest that maybe we can put it more of an IT section and come up with more, because communication was a little bit of an issue over the past couple of years, perhaps towards a master calendar for coordination purposes between all the schools, listing of, we have a prescribed number of students per school for any one time. So if we could potentially do some kind of IT issue where all the surf schools could look at it, you get a request for a lesson, boom, boom, 2 people. Now that 2 person thing is off for that time, and so we don't have an overlap and conflict and those kind of things. So just purely a recommendation of maybe a potential use of course, that always now adds to staff fees. I get it. But at any rate, I just wanted to kind of bring that up. Just curious as to why the increase and why increase this year. A little bit of explanation for that. But anyway, I just wanted to just pick up on that behalf. But I was just curious about that.
I'm going to go ahead and take a crack at that, just because, I think, we look at, we provide many services. The city always provides services, and that's our job, is to provide services. And those services, I think, should attempt to try to cover our costs. I think the citizens expect that when we offer a variety of services, and that's why when the example was looked up, and I think you had it on a slide, if you can go back to that slide, at the bottom there, you see the full recovery cost. So for 5 permits, it's $1,500, and this year we collected $250. So this is something that's been operating at a deficit for a long time. When I looked at other schools around the area, and I'd say we're still significantly lower than any other school. And what this says to me is that if we have 5 schools next year and we bring in $2,500, we may show a surplus of $1,000 on paper. But and you especially should know this, that our surf schools tend to cause us some extra attention. And with anything, that attention, just translates into a cost. So I think I was part of the recommendation to raise that to 500, and I think it was, unfortunately for you, I think it's a reasonable fee. And anybody else wants to weigh in on that, or if you want to correct me on any of that, that's good. Go ahead, Mike.
I think, I'm going to be very strongly in favor of raising it to the 500, but I think in view of that, the least we can do is set up some kind of a system, the shared calendar idea. We have the technology, and I think that the surf schools should have a tool with our assistants to communicate better, because just talking amongst themselves, like I may have somebody, I may not, it's flaky, and it puts everybody in trouble, because you drive a student down there, and there's 6 people in the water already, and you got to go back.
Right.
So, again, in favor of the 500, and also strongly in favor of working out some kind of a system.
Mr. City Manager, do you see that as a possibility?
I think I would defer to Captain Held in terms of setting up some sort of system about what sort of workability that would be. I think that there are challenges for the city taking ownership and trying to operate something like that for private.
Less taking ownership than providing a platform. Maybe the IT committee can.
Any feelings? Just off the.
If my memory serves me correctly, I've watched most of the surf school council meetings, and I believe when we originally came up with that idea, I worked with Eric Mitchell. I was in the background with everybody that was involved in that, but I believe they decided amongst themselves that they were going to work that part of it out, and we weren't going to be involved in that. They were going to work together on the scheduling to make sure there was no conflicts. And I think they even brought that up when they talked about it the last time, that it's been working out really good, that their communication. And now, obviously, we have had one complaint that I know of this year, and it wasn't called in through our dispatch. So it seems to be working out. We're getting into summer, so it's going to be a lot more busy.
Next year, correct?
Correct.
I guess we'll just watch this year and see how it goes.
Okay.
Thank you for that input.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would like to pose the question to the council, there are sometimes very valid appeals that take place, and they make good sense. And we've also seen a rash of rather frivolous appeals that, pit neighbor against neighbor. And that's just not the kind of environment we want to foster. And I think that $142 is an open invitation to dropping an appeal on anything anyone does in the neighborhood if you have the least bit of, rancor towards them. So I'd like to, put it out there and see where we'd like to go with processing these appeals.
Mr. City Manager, do you have a better number that might seem appropriate in this case?
Well, internally, we discussed the pros and cons of different numbers. I think we were hovering between 350 and 5 at a staff level in our internal discussions. On some level, there might be a situation where city staff blew it and really didn't interpret the code correctly, and the city council would have a different read of it. And the concern is putting the fee too high to really limit the ability for someone to access sort of due process. At the same time, I think the term frivolous appeal has come up, and we've seen a couple of them. In fact, we have another one we're playing with right now, which are they're sort of extraordinarily. They seem as relatively small scale, and it seems challenging from our perspective that we're spending significant amounts of staff time responding to it, preparing the agenda reports, noticing, doing all this work. So, if I were to toss another number out there, 500, I think maybe strikes that balance a little better.
And across the board, planning or administrative?
Yes. This is separate from the planning field. We're not proposing a change to the planning
I'm
field.
proposing a change.
I believe that was the question to both, because you're going to take one to 350 and the other one you're going to leave at 142, and I think the proposal
is to send both of them
across the board $500. And I'm going to ask opinions while you're contemplating it.
Well, we've had frivolous appeals, but not really very many. Not really very many that I can
seem to be
remember.
growing, though, for some reason.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll stop. But
So
I'm eternally optimistic.
Okay, Jacques, you have an opinion on that?
Is there supposing it's a mistake from planning, and upon review we realize that that's a situation. So do we have the authority to pay back some of that appeal? So if it's 500, split the difference or something like that.
Well, I can assure you that every appeal would then come from an appeal for the waiver of the fee. So I wouldn't recommend that approach. One approach might be to split the baby and go, the administrative decision appeal fees, frankly, we have an appeal in front of us right now on somebody constructed a structure illegally without permits on someone else's property. And we've issued an abatement order and they've appealed it. So in that situation, we're faced with a significant amount of staff time, attorney's time potentially, dealing with it with a $140 appeal fee, which does seem somewhat galling. Maybe split the baby, $500 for the administrative decisions and $250 on the planning decisions, but it's entirely within your purview.
Maybe we'll leave it to the maker of the motion.
I would move to adopt the new fee schedule, including the surf schools, including the residential single-family staff review, and to increase administrative decision appeal fees and planning commission appeal fees to $500.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And I think that falls right between dampening the frivolous ones and still allowing due process.
So I'm going to vote against it because I'm not sure about, I'd have to look at a list of cases and see which ones I thought were really, we spent a whole lot of time on that we shouldn't have, and that fee wasn't appropriate. So I'm just not going to vote for it right now, but I'm very sympathetic with raising.
Totally understandable, and yet I've yet to see an appeal that staff didn't spend a lot of time on.
Okay.
Sue, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on this.
Councilmember Harlan?
No.
Councilmember Bertrand?
Yes.
Councilmember Termini?
Yes.
Mayor Bottorff?
Yes, that motion carries 3-1. That moves us on to our next item, which is number F, the adoption of the fiscal year budget for the city of Capitola.
Mr. Mayor, that's something very much internal. Can we take care of the polling, or are we waiting for?
Well, I was hopeful that Council Member Norton had requested that he was coming back, and he wanted that was the reason for the delay of this measure. Yeah.
Was there an ETA for Councilmember Norton?
He said he was going to be back in an hour.
Okay. All right.
But remember, he's going to a council meeting.
Oh.
So how long do those take?
To the wrong council
Are you
meeting?
making an attempt to the wrong council meeting? Yeah.
Okay.
Are you attempting to make contact?
I've attempted to make contact.
Yeah.
Are you?
That is the only reason for the delay, and like I said,
I'm just trying to respect the time of our consultant.
you know what, I appreciate that, so I think that we've given due consideration to delay this as long as possible, so with that in mind, we're going to...
I see a smile.
We're going to change it again, but thank you for your patience for allowing us to at least try to be whole, because we do appreciate your report. So at this time, we're going to go to item B, which is receive a public opinion survey results.
I thought the budget was going to be passed, but we know how that's going to
I was stalling.
The public opinion mage.
No, you all should have hard copies of what's going up on there now. You do have it. Okay. Okay. Oh, no, you don't. Now you're about to get
Here
it.
they are.
There you go.
Bike lane friendly. Green lane friendly.
Okay. This is on your computer?
Yeah, we're running right.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. So I'll wave at you when it's time to change slides. Or... All right. Well, hi there. Nice to be back. I'm Gene Bregman. I'm happy to be back again. I appreciate Mike moving me along before actually the meeting's going to run out after 8, so I'm okay. Let me tell you a little bit of what we did. We did survey of people who could be called likely voters in this November's election, and that's based on generally their voting history. So we know who votes and who doesn't. We completed 180 interviews last weekend. There was some margin of error of plus or minus 7%. Some of the characteristics of the sample registered, and this is, what we do is we stratify the sample, which means that to make sure that we have a correct mirror of what the voting public is going to look like, we make sure we get the right proportions of party, age, gender, so it's a mirror of what's actually going to be out there. Democrats 61%, Republicans 18%, Independents or others 21%. 58% are permanent absentee voters. And the other really interesting one is 63% of the people were interviewed on their cell phones. I don't know how close to a cell tower that was, but 2 years ago we did the survey for you all, only 44% were interviewed on cell phones. As times are changing even more, and in fact, we had 48 people in the survey who were under 40 years of age, and every single one of those people was interviewed on a cell phone, which is astounding. 71% in the 41 to 64 age group, and 29% of those 65 and over were interviewed on cell phones. All right, so what we're going to do is just go over some of the highlights of the survey. The first 3 charts will also compare to the survey we did 2 years ago for you. First question, just rating Capitola as a place to live. Last time, 95% thought it was an excellent or good place. Now, 97%. Nobody thought it was a poor place to live. In most places, it's very high. It's not necessarily quite this high, but that's gives you an indication of how well people like where they live and still do. Chart 2. Rating the overall job being done by Capitola City government. Again, these are extraordinarily high ratings. So you can pat yourselves and the staff on the back, as Mike rolls his eyes. Yeah, 78% excellent, good last time, 79% this time rate the job being done by government as excellent or good. Only fair, 11, almost identical results as last time. Also very, very positive. And the third chart is the job the city is doing managing its budget and finances, which you would expect to be considerably lower, because people tend to not think that any government agency manages its budget and finances all that well. But yours is still pretty good, 53% excellent good, 58% last time, but that entire difference comes in the no opinion. It was 19, now it's 24, the same 5% difference. And I think the reason for that is that you have a broader universe, people who are less engaged in government and in current events and what's going on, so there'd be more of them with no opinions. Democrats were a little more positive at 55% than were Republicans at 43, or independents at 46. Chart 4, we always ask in any sort of tax measure, how much need does the entity have for more money? In this case, the city. Great need, some need, a little need, or no real need. Just 12% said there was a great need. The combined great and some need is 55%, which is nice, because that passes what's going to be our vote total of 50%. It's also nice because we're not actually going to be asking them for more money. We're just going to be asking them to continue what they've been paying. The only real difference here, besides the voters, obviously, the yes voters thought there was more need than the no voters did. Younger voters under 40 years of age more often thought there was at least some need than did those over 40. Okay. Chart 5 summarizes the various times we asked people for a vote, and we read them a paragraph similar to what they would see when they would go into the voting booth. We prefaced it by saying there may be a measure on the ballot to maintain the city's current quarter-cent sales tax as follows. And so they knew ahead of time what they were voting on before they even read the actual statement to them. The continuation, the first time we asked it, for a 10-year period, we got 81% yes. Anyone who hadn't said yes to that was asked, well, how about it was only for 6 years, and we went up to 84%. The last two sets of bars are at the end of the survey, after people have heard good and bad things relative to the measure, and there is a very slight drop-off to 78% for 10 years and 80% for 6 years. Not too many, when you get to this high level, there aren't too many demographic differences that show up. Democrats were at 86%, Republicans at 79, and Independents at 73 in the first vote. I mean, it's a little bit more for the Democrats than the others, but not enormously so. Men under 50 were at 94% on the first vote. And that kind of separation happened pretty much all the way through on all the votes. But some of the other kind of breaks that you sometimes see on more contested elections just didn't show up here. So the first of the questions we asked between the two votes was, we went through a list of 9 different programs that are or could be supported by the sales tax, and we asked people to evaluate each one as being a very important usage, somewhat important, not too important, not at all, and important usage. These percentages are just the percentages that say it's very important, just the top score. And it was led by 2 items: maintaining the police department at full staffing at 67%, and protecting the city's beaches and wharf from the effects of rising sea levels and future storms at 62%. 3 others just behind it. Actually, the next 5 were technically about statistically and not significantly different from each other, but led by 3 that were beyond our 50% range: maintain city parks, improving and constructing sidewalks and bike lanes throughout the city to improve safety, and improving flood control. The people who were yes in the beginning of the survey but are not yes at the end, it's a small group of them, but just they slightly different. The first 2 items were most important to them, along with the flood control, item D. And the one item, which was one of our lower scoring items, but it actually showed the greatest differentiation in certain voter groups, was item G, maintaining the city's infrastructure, which was more important to our most frequent voters, less important to those who only show up for the general presidential. People who own their homes, people who've lived in the city for more than 11 years, people who were interviewed on a landline, and really sort of the key to all of these groups, the people who are 65 years of age or older. That item was more important to those folks. Chart 7 shows 4 reasons we gave people why they might want to oppose the item, the measure rather, and we asked to rate each one as making you much more likely to oppose it, somewhat more likely, or would it have no effect on your opinion one way or the other. This is, these numbers are just the much more likely to oppose. Again, they're all pretty low, with the top one being 19% for item B, although technically tied with the next two at 17 and 13. It doesn't show a lot of natural opposition to the measure, as you would expect when you start out with 81% support. And then our last chart is the flip side, the reasons much people give to favor the measure. And again, the same scale was used, make you much more likely, somewhat more likely to support it, or to make no difference to you one way or the other. The 3 top scoring items for being much more likely were the one which we ask and have asked in hundreds of surveys over the years, and it always comes out number 1 or 2. All the money raised by this measure will stay here in our local community. Doesn't go to Sacramento, doesn't go to Washington. It's our money, and it's used to benefit us. Also, the city's wharf was originally built more than 150 years ago and will need significant investment in the future in order just to stay safe and remain open. And then item D, a sales tax is the fairest way to raise money, especially since it means that people who shop here but do not live here will support services that benefit them too. Just right next to that is the one below it, which is sort of similar, a different take on a similar issue. With all our shopping and visitor attractions, 75% of the sales tax money would be paid by people who do not live in Capitola. So those two sort of together form an issue. But in fact, all of the reasons are good reasons. There's no bad ones here. The only recommendation is that as one does a campaign, you can't focus on 8 different issues. You're going to pretty much want to focus on the ones that are the most effective. So in short, you are in very good shape for continuing this. I think the city manager is in agreement. You might as well not have to put yourselves through this all that often. I mean, going through an election campaign is costly and time-consuming and energy-consuming. And if you can extend it for 10 years rather than 6, I think I would recommend you go for that. Any questions?
Margin of error?
I'm sorry?
4 or 5% margin of error?
7.
7.
7 to 180.
Good.
Yeah, 'cause you've got a small city here.
Right.
Questions? Thank you for the report, and thank you for hanging around.
Oh, sure. Well, the game's not going as well as I would like.
Okay. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Anybody from the...
Let's turn it on this.
Anybody from the... You have a question?
I was going to add my sort of take on the polling. I think that Jean did a great job, and I think the council has done a really good job of identifying some priorities for a potential extension. In looking at the polling results and taking into account the factors that Mr. Bregman alluded to, the cost and effort of going through elections, it seems to me, and also looking ahead to the fiscal position of the city in coming years as we see revenues expiring and we see costs rising. So it is my recommendation tonight that the council would direct staff to put an ordinance on for July 28th to extend Measure D for 10 years to maintain general services, including protecting the city's beaches and wharf from the effect of rising sea levels, maintaining the police department at full staffing, and improving sidewalks and bike lanes to improve safety, and then direct staff to prepare a resolution describing the council's intentions to use these funds for these priorities, and then we would be doing this on July 28th agenda. And the reason why we have this timeline, as you'll recall, is that our next meeting is taken up with the skate park, and then we're dark, the first meeting in July, so this would be the next opportunity to come back and do this. And as you know, again recall, the deadline for taking action is August 11th, last opportunity to place something on that ballot. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Questions of staff?
I have no questions.
Anyone from the public like to comment on this? Come on up, Karen.
Yeah, the game's not going well, so I don't need to get home. Spoiler alert. No, I just wanted to say quickly that the BIA officers talked about this, and also I've talked to a lot of the people on the street, because we're the ones, some of the ones who collect the tax, and everybody's like, you know, what is Capitola Village without the wharf? So that clearly that was like way up there in importance, and everybody that I talked to said, you know, no brainer. I mean, we're already collecting it. We might as well go forward with it. So I'm really glad the survey turned out that way. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for those comments. Go ahead and close the public comment. Bring it back. Chuck.
Jamie, I don't know if you know, but I think the governor wants to extend 30.
I'm not aware of what their plans are at this point, whether he's going to extend or not. Gene?
There we go.
Only the income tax Only the income tax portion of 30 is being extended. The sales tax is not.
Okay. Good to know. Stephanie?
What was the third point? You said the first one was the police department.
Sidewalks, streets, and parks.
Sidewalks, it's on the
Sidewalks, bike lanes, and parks.
last, and improving sidewalks and bike lanes.
Yeah.
Should I bump up the font? I can do that quickly.
Well, I was just thinking, was there anything else on the list that we wanted to insert in there, something?
The parks might be a good thing, but, you know,
I would say infrastructure.
Well,
maybe people don't understand what
yeah,
what
I mean,
infrastructure
my
means.
take is, you know, we're looking at a $5 million wharf project
Yeah.
to do it properly. And that constitutes approximately half of the next 10 years of this tax. I'd prefer not to promise too much and focus and still stay in the simple majority kind of a general fund thing. So certainly we could spend a lot of money to have a fund to just dedicate to bike lanes and sidewalks would be wonderful, to improve the wharf and
the flume and
the
possibly
flume
the jetty
and,
and other items.
That's
I
all
mean,
part of it.
This is ocean looking in, is my perception of everything that's vulnerable.
Right. I'm just thinking about adding the words flume. Well, of course, they don't know what that is. Or the jetty, they're not going to know where that is either. But, you know, something that's a little more descriptive so people can get excited about it and say, okay, they're going to do that project, and that project.
Maintain the features on our beach.
Well, this was actually the way the question was pulled.
Yeah.
So this is the protecting the city's beaches and wharf from the effects of rising sea levels, and that really did seem to resonate with voters.
That covers it. Maybe that covers everything. I was just trying to see if we could bring it down to, this is a little bureaucratic, and if we could bring it down to a level that all the voters can really understand and say, oh, that's cool, and that's cool.
I think the argument's a good opportunity, and the campaign of the good opportunities to talk about the jetty, talk about the flume.
I think we can expand on that, because this should be
Yeah.
succinct, I think, and I think it.
And I think it's good that we're not just extending this as for a desire for more money, per se, but we have discovered and have been informed about a clear and pressing need. And the most enormous of that is the wharf,
Well,
certainly.
like you said, the specific project on this
Yeah,
is the wharf.
that's the one that precipitated this. And
That's what got us here.
yeah, and it, oddly enough, if you look at all the features we have to protect and the things we have to do, that 10 years and $10 million roughly rounds it out and completes those projects.
We're going to be surprised at how it goes.
Well, I would just say between now and the next few days, if we think of something that we might want to change or, make it a little bit more user-friendly.
When it's time to write the argument
Yeah.
in favor, I think we can get much more specific.
Well, this
because we
isn't
have more
ballot language either,
too.
so, yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think the intent was to have this as close to the ballot language. Oops, I keep trying to click on it.
Right, that was
as
my
close to the ballot language as possible, because that'll help your city attorney prepare something. Because unfortunately, another option is to schedule a special meeting to spend some more time talking about it.
We can, if we keep this as the language, this is for Tony, if we keep this as the core language, we can certainly expand upon it in the ballot measure, can we not? I mean, if we want to add things like flume and jetty, that all speaks to
parks.
city's wharf and the effects of rising sea level, like Councilmember Harlan suggested, that would still fit within the framework of this. I mean, if we were to expand upon this with 2 more sentences or whatever.
So long as the
focus.
language is included in the ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
We certainly add things.
Right.
But to be clear, the city attorney will need to draft that ordinance before July 28th.
Okay.
So the second reading of it actually doesn't happen. It doesn't happen until after the ordinance takes effect. That's effectively the voters. Is that correct? The voters' action. So July 28th is
The day.
yes.
So you want more direction from us on how to cobble the language?
Well, the question is this, because the city attorney will be using your direction this evening to cobble the language. Now, at the hearing, there could be changes made on the 28th, certainly, but to the extent that we can, try to hash this out tonight and figure out where we want to go, or schedule another opportunity for another workshop between now and the 28th, that's another option. But as clear as we can be, I think we'll be better off.
Could I ask Mr. Bregman if he has a suggestion?
Yeah, it seems like he has something he wants to say.
Please tell.
2 things. One, I'll be happy to work with you to help you, craft language. But I wanted to read you what we actually read to the voters in the poll, because I think it covered everything really well, and some of this language is taken from other measures we've done. It said, without increasing taxes, shall the city of Capitola continue a sales tax of 0.25% for an additional 10 years to protect essential city services such as police and emergency safety programs, and to maintain the wharf and beach, roads and parks, maintain city reserves, and provide other services, with all funds staying local. Now, you could probably, maybe tweak that a little bit to get, some of that a little more specific things there. But I think some of that stuff you want to make sure you have in here, like without increasing taxes.
That sounded better.
All funds staying local. It's got to be in there.
My only question, my only criticism of it, or there are 2 actually, because I had one criticism, I may as well throw another one in. I'd like to stay away from the word roads, because we have passed a tax measure that was pretty specific on roads, and we're performing on it.
Right.
I don't want to say that again,
right.
because it's a red flag.
Right. Well, it's duplication.
Right. And the second thing is, I think the bike lane idea, taking the place of it, the sidewalks and city infrastructure, bike lanes and sidewalks.
Bike lane and sidewalks for roads.
I think your suggestion about having the parks in there is good, and I think just about all that
We have
language.
reserves in there, too. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
I think we need to get reserves out because we used it already and we're
Well,
fully
it was in
reserved.
there. So you want to delete that.
I'm sorry I missed that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to hear that, because it gives you a more
That's friendly.
general picture of how to do it without making it so specific that it looks like it's a specific measure and it clicks in the 2/3.
It's a challenge for 2/3.
Right. Well, O was roads and reserves, and we've done that.
Right, roads and reserves out and bike lanes in.
Yeah. I think that's what was up there.
So this is, here we've got, this is the actual language. And I got to make it a little smaller. So without increasing taxes, shall the city of Capitola continue a sales tax of 0.25% for an additional 10 years to protect essential city services such as police, emergency safety programs, to maintain the wharf and beach. Delete the word roads.
Yes.
Delete this.
Yes.
Provide other services with all funds staying local.
Yeah, and insert bike lanes.
Add bike lanes.
I think sidewalks and bike lanes.
Mm-hmm.
We okay with and provide other services? Is that?
I think.
Are we afraid
No,
of vague?
I like it because it maintains the general nature of the thing. Provide other services. It gives you the option to do other important city services. I'll defer to the attorneys whether it's absolutely necessary or not.
Go ahead, Jacques.
Sir, what's your sense of the public's understanding of seed lot advice as the motivating factor in providing money?
Well, only in the sense that they responded to it very well in the question that mentioned it, but we didn't, ask them.
Didn't do a control on that, did you?
No.
Because I'm not sure the public understands that clearly enough. I mean, surely maybe in this area with beaches, it could be on their mind. I'm just wondering.
Well, I think nowadays people understand that sea levels are rising, part of the whole of climate change. But other than that, the specifics of this, hard to know.
Do we want to say repair and maintain the wharf? I just want to give. I just want to give.
I'm just trying to see. He's got it blocked out right now.
I'm
We're
just-
increasing taxes.
Parks?
It's on there.
Parks, good. Okay, so I agree with Mark on that. I have another question. Was this a yes, no, respond within 1 to 5, or did you also have general comments that were recorded?
No open-ended questions.
So do we want to add repair and maintain the wharf, because we want to have the focus of it on that the wharf needs a lot of work, and we want to use the money for that. We want to put that first, or rather the public safety.
I'd like it to be clear that it's more than maintain. I mean, I think our.
That's why I say repair and maintain.
So what was interesting was, when you look up here, protecting the city's beaches and wharfs from the effects of rising sea levels and future storms pulled very well. But when we asked the question of enhancing the wharf for both residents and visitors with improved facilities and better access,
We're not talking about that. That's
right,
that's
it didn't
different-
do
that's
as
apples and
well.
oranges. Yeah,
But so there was some magic in this language, I think.
Right, but when I look at enhancing the wharf, that means adding buildings or bathrooms or facilities, whereas the other one is actually, I'm talking about, I think the message we sent when we had this discussion a month ago was, we're talking about rebuilding the wharf. I mean, that's the message.
It sounds like the public understands
Protecting
that.
and repairing, is that what that's.
To me, this is good. I mean, we're trying to portray the reality of our wharf, and it seems
And
like
you
that
should.
question results is responding to that. And the fact that we need to do repair, we need to maintain it,
Absolutely.
as opposed to make it look like
Right.
on a raised
I
wharf
agree.
or something. Okay. Yeah, because it's a reality we're trying to deal with.
That's good. I think that's better.
How are we doing?
Yeah, I think we're doing much better. Good.
So we added protect and maintain. So that was just added from storms and rising sea levels. So that was added. We added sidewalks and bike lanes. And we deleted maintain city reserves and roads.
That looks good.
You good with this, Tony?
I assume we're still under the 75 words. 'Cause we were well under before.
You don't have a problem with other services?
No,
Too vague?
no,
You're
no.
okay?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for your suggestions about this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well under 75.
Did you have any people that didn't want to talk to you?
Oh, of course.
They didn't
I don't know
say-
how many, but, nowadays, people just, they have the caller ID and they look at it and they say.
You don't take it personally, though?
Well,
Okay.
not too much. No.
So what did you say? There's a difference between landlines and cell phone lines? Most people have cell phones now. They don't.
Now, most of the people who were interviewed on the survey were interviewed on their cell phones, except if you're over 65.
And you called in the evening?
Even in the weekend. That's why
that's
we do
good.
most of our interviewing on the weekends, because you get more
During the
people.
day?
Day and into the evening,
Yeah.
on Sunday, except Friday and Sunday particularly, yeah.
I like it.
All right.
And we're looking.
We'll work with Gene and Tony to hone this down, but it sounds like there's consensus
Better,
around.
That's much better.
Good.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all.
Great job, Jane. Thank you very much.
And
We need a motion on this.
would you like a resolution of intent to come along with it, or do you think, what's the council's wish on that?
I think it should happen altogether.
A resolution of intent that mirrors this
Yes.
at the same meeting? Will do.
The deadline, by the way, for the election is August 12th.
Right.
To get the language.
So
So we just need to provide direction. We don't need to do anything.
at this point, I have direction from the council. We will return on the 28th meeting with the necessary documentation and this language to put it on the ballot and the resolution of intent.
Okay. Then That takes us to our last item, the dreaded budget. Mr. Welch.
Mayor, members of council, this is the final adoption of the fiscal year 2016-17 budget. I just wanted to recap kind of how we got here. The proposed budget was distributed on May 13th. The Finance Advisory Committee met on May 17th, where they made the recommendation to approve the proposed budget to the City Council. The City Council has had 2 meetings on May 18th and then again on June 1st. And at that June 1st meeting, the City Council provided directions for the adoption today. The general fund to be adopted tonight has a surplus of just under $2,000. Some items that were added to the proposed budget that was distributed to you and is on our website is increase of $10,000 for the Esplanade street cleaning, the PD Multidisciplinary Interview Center, replace the bollards on Wharf and Bromer, and increase the stipend for the ARC site from $25 to $50. And all of those are included in the resolution tonight. Just wanted to briefly go over the CIP funding. We have a general fund transfer. This is new money of $752,047. We have the recommendation, staff recommendation to perform a budget adjustment from the fiscal year 2015-16, the current year that we're in, by transferring $312,000 of unbudgeted sales tax from the triple flip unwinding, and also $200,000 from the Pacific Cove fund balance into the CIP for Risman Park and the pavement management plan. In addition to those 2 projects, the CIP includes Fanmar design, beach access, wharf improvements for $100,000, Esplanade Park wall, $100,000, Stockton Bridge assessment at $50,000, bank for the pavement management plan of $326,000, and then slurry seal at $150,000.
I also wanted to note that on the Hooper's Beach stairs, which was the source of much discussion after the last meeting, we went back and sharpened our pencils and had some conversations with the crew, and they have developed a plan to do a patch to the Hooper's Beach stairs. It's scheduled for July. We would plan to use maybe $5,000 out of that $100,000 for materials, but the thought was a lighter level fix than the full engineered repair that we had previously discussed. So it looks like we can get that done and maintain about $95,000 in that beach access wharf account.
I think it should be impressed upon us the fact that the crew in Public Works came up to fix a problem that we had.
Right.
Of their own free will, and were creative. And instead of fighting the ocean with something stronger and more engineered, they figured out, let's put something in during the summer, take it out during the stormy season. Brilliant. And they did it themselves, $5,000. We still have $100,000. I can't say enough about that.
Yeah. Matt and Cooper got me at the line at Nob Hill the next day, and that's where they started pitching the idea. So
yeah.
It looks like a really terrific solution. I think it solves the problem that we were having last time.
Just on a segue, I've been noticing, I mean, they're doing much more paving in town on their own and repair. Steve's not here to verify this, but I'm sure you're aware of it. And I just saw him laying the bricks over where the car ran into the in front of Sue's Ice Cream. They patched that. So these guys are pretty talented, okay? I'm just...
And the new little plaza at the crosswalk.
And it goes
beautiful,
on and on.
beautiful design. And we didn't even have a consultant design that area. I don't know how we managed to do it without that.
The mayor was spotted out there numerous times.
I was speaking of a consultant, not a sidewalk superintendent. Okay.
We don't have the money to pave, to do a slurry seal on the whole street there.
Where are we discussing? I'm sorry.
It would, it looks like it's only half done.
Oh, to slurry the whole piece of Stockton? It
really
wasn't
nice.
part of the original plan. We can...
I mean, not in the middle of summer now, but, whenever we can, it'd be nice. It would really look better.
Well, we do have the slurry seal projects, and we do have the PMP bank. There's a fair amount of money in there, so when we start talking about where the slurry seal would go, maybe around the village might make some sense. Yeah.
It would look really nice there to have that finished. It kind of looks only half done.
And speaking of our brilliant Public Works Department, maybe we could utilize the same method to shop around for that senior exercise equipment we were talking about and have Public Works install it ourselves. That would cut it down dramatically from the original cost.
It might. About 50% of the original cost you were looking at was $40,000 for 4 pieces. They're about $5,000 per piece. So they was sort of double installed. So yes, we can look around for those opportunities. I'm also very sensitive of the crew's workload because we have a very heavy workload. We have a lot of demands on them. So what you saw was a turnkey project. You're right. If it's a back burner kind of project, there's an opportunity to do something for less. The pieces of equipment apparently themselves are $4,000 or $5,000 a piece.
And if we see something come in either mid-year or the last quarter, and we get a bump in sales tax, that's the kind of little bump that can do a big thing.
I would be open to it, but at this point, I think we were 1,900. We're to the positive. Is that our?
Yeah.
So I don't think we're
No.
ready to do that. Okay.
I'm just suggesting that that's the direction to go.
Future
with that.
funds.
Yeah, $20,000, and we have a senior park horse.
Continue.
With the passage of the library measure locally, we're recommending with adoption of the budget a motion to create a library fund. This would account for all the library activities, including the construction. There's 2 sources of funds. There's the $2.6 million, which is held by the county. That was from the former RDA. And then there's the additional $8 million from the recently passed bond measure. So about $10.6 million will be coming to the city. We're recommending, staff is recommending that we utilize, let me step back. So we had an original agreement that allowed the city to use 15% of the $2.6 million for design. We've already spent $23,300, leaving us a balance of $372,700. We're requesting with this budget that we request and book that revenue this year, so the full $372,700 from the county, and they're in agreement with that, and also budget $30,000 for a project manager. And then possible budget amendment later in the year with the architect contract.
Would you explain the book as revenue remaining design funding?
I think so. Basically, what we would do is we would ask the county for the rest of the 15%. And we would take it in as revenue, and we would hold it in the isolated library fund. And the only expenditure we would plan this year right now is $30,000 for the project manager. We have an RFP out for a project manager to start shotgunning the project. If we decide to spend more of the $372,000 this year, a budget amendment would come with it. So, for example, if we did select an architect, we would amend the budget. But basically, we're taking all the money back in from the county, going to put it in a special fund, and at this point, budget $30,000 is all.
And we can start drawing on the rest of that $2.6 million at what point?
In construction.
So we have to actually have the contract let, a contractor on board, and breaking ground.
I do believe that's the case. The remaining $8 million, the other $8 million, though, there aren't the strings attached to that. So that other $8 million, as it becomes available, can be used for design and other pre-construction type activities. Good.
So with that, the recommendation tonight is to adopt the budget with the changes that we outlined earlier, which are included in the resolution. We also recommend with the adoption that we adjust the budget to create a library fund, showing the revenue of $372,700, as well as an expenditure in that library fund of $30,000. And we also recommend that as part of the CIP funding levels, that we adjust our current fiscal years, the 2015-16 CIP transfer from the general fund, increase the transfer to CIP by $312,000. That's that unbudgeted sales tax cleanup for the triple flip, and then also a $200,000 from the Pat Cove fund balance.
Questions?
Yep.
Any questions? Stephanie? Any question?
I really think it was a great idea to have a project manager. Just want to commend staff for coming up with that idea.
Anyone from the public like to weigh in on the budget? Thank you for your silence. And with that, I'll bring it back for discussion. Motion?
I move that we approve the budget for 2016-17 as presented. with the changes in fund transfers as enumerated.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Our new budget carries unanimously. Thank you. Stephanie?
Just oral communication when you're ready.
I'm ready right now, oral communication.
I just wanted to give you an update on that mobile home park in Palo Alto that the owner was trying to close. It's 117 spaces, and I don't know the size of the park, and I don't know what it appraised for. But last time I saw Supervisor Joe Smitty, and I said, how's it going? And he said, well, it wasn't going very well, but they had another plan, and the plan is that they're going to pay $14.5 million of affordable housing fees from the county, $14.5 million from affordable housing fees from the city of Palo Alto, and a financial contribution from the housing authority of, doesn't say what amount. So whoever owns this park is going to get $30 million plus from this. Now, granted, it is prime Palo Alto property, but it does save these homes, and they are low-income people. So, I mean, they were really able to pull a rabbit out of a hat and find this money. There was great commitment by the city of Palo Alto and the supervisors, and they got support from 24 mayors, council members, school board members, local legislators, members of the community, neighborhood groups, PTA, local and regional press expressed their editorial support for this deal, and apparently it's a huge win-win for those people, and I just say congratulations, and that's a heck of a lot of money.
That's a lot.
Almost as good as what we did at Castle.
That is a lot of money for 117 homes, but they made it work.
Yeah, no, that's a great effort.
Yeah.
Any other comments? With that, this meeting is adjourned. We will see you all next week on June 23rd for our next meeting. Good night.